Hello viewers, today I'm going to take the panels off the TC Wanderer. So I'll show you all the screws and bolts that you need to actually take off the rear guard and also the side panels. By taking off the side panels, that gives you access to the insides, to the electrics, the controller, the brake lines, etc. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's get started. We'll do the rear first and we'll go from there. We'll work our way to the front of the bike. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this back cover, and to do that you're going to have a Phillips head screwdriver, and we're just going to undo this small screw here. It'll just come straight out. So obviously I'm doing things one-handed here at the moment with the camera, so it's a little bit awkward. And then this one here is a hexagonal. It's a 5mm, so just pop that in, undo that one. Okay, so that comes out, and just do the same on the other side, and then I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so now that they're out, this just pulls off, but there's inside here is a little clip, so you just have to pull it out slightly. When I take this off, you can see the actual tab here. There's a little tab, and that just goes into this part of the plastic decoration. So that's taking off that part, and so that exposes the rear shock absorber if you ever want to do cleaning without worrying about taking off these side panels. You can just do that very simply. Alright, let's look at the side panels and we'll go there next. So the side panels has two screws. That's a Phillips head. It's one here and then one here. Now this one down the bottom here, the angle is not straight. Can't really see that with my driver. It's not like this, it's like that. That is the angle. So when you take it out you can remember, but often when you're trying to put it back in you're going straight in, but it's actually this way. I'll take that out first. You can see the angle of the actual Phillips head. So it just screws out as well. Very straightforward. Let's take this one out. This one's obviously straight because it's in front of you. Okay, that's out as well. Should have got my magnetic screwdriver. I'll do that on the other side. Okay, so they're both out. All you have to do now is just pull the cover off. How easy is that? So this is the cover. It's only held on by those two Phillips head screws. And then that exposes the rear cover plate here. So the rear cover plate, you have one screw here and one screw under the actual rear seat, the rear foot peg, bar, and basically it just comes off. So you can see here that the plastic goes over the top of this insert, so you just have to pull that out. Okay, so let's do that next. It's the same 5mm, so we just remove that. And then remove the one under the foot peg bar. Okay, I'll just carefully take that out, and that just lifts off. And there we go, there's the panel off, and that's the exposed rear swing arm. It's exactly the same on the other side, it's identical. The one thing I will say on the other side, I'll just move over, is that you do have this, the number plate bar, but that has got nothing to do with this. It's separate. So you can still take this off, and this will still remain on. If you want to take this off, you just undo the hexagonal screws. There's 2 here and 1 inside under this cover here. But this one here, yeah, you can just leave on. It doesn't affect this. Okay, now we're going to remove this side panel here. To do that, we need some other tools. We need to remove this little black cap here, and to do that I actually have a plastic removal tool. It looks like this, and it slips in there and flicks it out. But in an emergency, if you really don't want to go and buy one, if you don't have one, you can use a flat bladed screwdriver with just electrical insulation tape on, and that can go inside there. You need to just wedge it open a little bit with your fingernail and pop it in, but it's not really the right tool for the job. Then we have our 5mm hex screw, and then that's it as far as the tricky bits, which aren't really tricky. And then we have to remove 3 Phillips head screws. So one is on the inside of the steering column here up near the top area. It's just inside here, so we have to remove that one. And then moving down to the fairing, we have to remove, just flick the wheel the other way so you can see in here. We have to, let me get that driver, we have to remove this one in here. And then coming down, there's one underneath here, right down near the bottom. So yeah, that one, it's near that fancy design part right near the bottom. That one, and the one up on the inside here. I'll just turn the wheel, and there it is up there. So there's only 3. This one down here you don't need to remove. Okay. Oh, and sorry, one more 5mm here. And then the panel pulls out. That's the scary part, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so let's see if I can get this in here. So what you need to do is just pull that out with your fingernail. This tool just slips in here like this, and then just wedges out, and there it is. It's a little clip like this. So that's the hardest part of this outside fairing, getting that off. And then we'll just move down to the 5mm here. Okay, so we'll just remove this. Sorry the background noise today. The farmer, my neighbour, is cutting the tea leaves today, so he's a little bit of noise from the cutting machine, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so that's out. Now we'll just move along to the screws now. Sorry, one more 5mm at the front, very front of the bike. It's obvious where it is. It just comes out. Okay, now we'll get to the screws. Okay, so this screws on the very top part here. Just pop in the screwdriver. There it is on the ground. That's where it comes from. Alright, so now we'll just move down to the next part. To do that, we're just going to move the steering wheel this way, and that way we've got access to the bottom screws. Okay, so we have this one here, which is just at the bottom of the controller. It runs just below that silver bar. It's just not, that's just a little tab. It's just below that. It's just here. Okay, there it is. And then one right down the very bottom. This one again is on an angle like that rear part I showed you. There it is, you can see it there. I'll just zoom up closer. Screwdriver goes in, and that's just going to come out in a diagonal direction towards the bottom. So that's the 3. So we have one there, one in the middle, and then one up in the top area. So that's all the screws. There's nothing holding the plastic guard on now, except some little inside of some little tabs, and we'll go through that. So let's do the next stage of actually taking the cover off now that all the mounts are off. Okay, so here's the panel, and basically we're just going to pull this off. You can feel some clips along here, and it just comes off along this edge. Now inside is some tabs. You can put your hand in here and you can just pull these tabs along here, and it just comes off like this. Now I'm going to flip it round, and the reason why I'm flipping it around, you can see that there's a tab, there's a little pin tab here and a little pin tab here, which correlates with this rubber grommet here and this rubber grommet here. So when I finish, I'm going to put some rubber grease on here and then rubber grease on here, just to make pulling this cover off much easier next time. But they're the only two tab points, one here and one here. So that's why when you're pulling it off, you put your fingers behind it and you just pull it forward. So if that's back on here like this, it just clips in. As you're pulling it off, you put your fingers here and it's pulling on that tab, and at the bottom is where the other tab is, and you're putting your fingers in here and pulling where that tab is here. And that's it. The other side is absolutely identical. The screws down here, and it'll just pull off like this, and now we can see the electrics, and I might have a talk about that with you. Okay, so let's look inside while we've got the side panel off. I'll explain some things. So basically you've got your main controller here, and at the bottom you can see that there's the orange cable that comes from your rear wheel. It just flows under the battery box and then comes up to these connectors onto the side of the controller. You can see a blue wire there, but let me just move that across here. Sorry, it's hard to see anything there. There we go. You can see that there's a blue wire there that's coming out of that your orange cable. It's one of your phase wires. It's a 3-phase AC motor. Up here is your brake for your brake system, and this one here is for your rear brake, and it follows all the way down along here and just comes out down along here, and then straight to your rear brake. So if you ever want to replace this cable, it's very easy. It's just along here, it unscrews from there. You'll just need to put a cloth under here, of course, you just need to put a cloth under here, of course, if you undo your bolt, if you're going to replace this cable for a more heavy duty, bigger cable made out of stainless steel with stainless steel wire to give you a bit more torque on the rear brake. So that's very easy to do. And then these two are for your front brakes here. Goes off into a little bit of a maze because it's a dual braking system here on this bike. So when you do the rear brake, it applies most of the rear brake power plus some of the front, and when you do the front brake, it supplies most of the front brake power plus some rear brake power. So that's in this little controller. It's not really a controller, it's a mechanical brake device. There's no electrics that are involved in this system whatsoever. Then you have your controller cover. This is a black cover. It's half hanging off, but if you notice, they've siliconed all the wires in anyway. It's completely waterproof, so even if this cover like mine has actually slipped off, it doesn't make a lot of difference because it's still water. The water won't get in there anyway. There are your cables going to your batteries, your two orange cables. Your batteries are just inside here. That's in your battery compartment. And this goes off. Your main sensing cable is here, and that goes off up into the top system there. So it's pretty easy. On the back side here, you can see that there's this white plastic cable in here. Let's get the camera to focus on that. Thank you. That is for the rear brake, not rear brake light, just the rear number plate number. So I'll swing around to show you that. So it's just for this little rear LED light here, and that cable is here, little black cable, and it runs to that connector. You can see I'm just flapping it around there. Let me just focus on that again. You can see I'm just flapping that around, so you can just disconnect that cable. It's just on a little clip. It's the same clip that I used on the 5-volt power supply video. It's exactly the same. A lot of the automotive companies use those standard connectors, and then you just undo the 3 bolts, one here and then these 2, and then this number plate comes off and you can take this off. Unfortunately, one thing is that they've used these little plastic clips, which you use the same blue tool that I used before to remove that other clip, but they're not reusable. You can't reuse these ones. So what I recommend, so you have to cut this cable tie to get this cable off. These cable ties are just ones that are on there holding it on. But this one here you have to cut. So once it's cut, you can't reuse it. So you can just buy some from any electrical shop or Amazon or something like that, where they're the same tabs, but you can actually reuse the clips. That's what I recommend you put on there when you cut that off. And this is the other side. I've taken the panel off using exactly the same screws. So on this side you have your voltage regulator. So basically it's stepping the voltage down. It's going from the 65 volts down to 12 volts DC, and that's used for your headlights and rear brake lights, indicators. So this is your main controller here. Down here's your GPS. You can see it's flashing away. You can see a little LED there. There we go, that's better. Just to make sure the camera's focused on it. There we are. So you can see the LED flashing. So even though the bike's off, this is still powered up. So if you turn the circuit breaker off, it won't drain any power whatsoever from your batteries. But yeah, that's your GPS module there, and that's on a connector. Connector's just here, just in there. You can see there. So you can unplug it, pull out the GPS module if ever you need to do any work on that. This here again, it's funny, this had this cable. This has never been put on from the factory. I don't think they could fit it on properly. This cable's too tight. From the factory they've got this all wound up really tightly in a figure 8, and it's too tight, so this won't bring it round. This won't come around to clip on here, but basically they've siliconed it all anyway. But it's a bit sloppy work, I think. I would have made sure that that's come right around and pushed on there properly. Look at that. Just took me an extra, what was that, 15 seconds to do. But, that's the difference from mass production line to somebody that takes a little bit of time and care to do it. Anyway, as I said, it doesn't particularly matter if it's on or off because it's siliconed anyway. So that's on the other side. You can see the phase cables here. There's a yellow and green phase wire that goes down to the orange cable, which runs under the bike. And you can see it coming out from underneath the bike there. That's the orange cable that goes back to the rear wheel hub. So it's pretty simple. Controllers here. And that's it. They're the main components. So you can never complain that you can't do any work on the bike. There's nothing in it. It's only got half a dozen parts in it. That's it. Okay, so that's all, viewers, today. I just wanted to show you how to pull the panels off, and that way you can clean inside. If you want to do any other work, add any other 12 volt leads or anything like that, you can pull these off without any issue at all. I'll just show you before I go the grease that I use, the rubber grease, and for these little grommets here, and then we'll call it a day. So this is what I use. It's called rubber grease. So you just pull off the cap. Sorry, here we go. And then you can just squirt it on. It's white, silicon based, and you just smear it on site in the actual grommet itself, the rubber grommet. Smear it in the rubber grommet. Then the one down the bottom, Smear it in the rubber grommet as well. Not only protects the rubber grommet from drying up, but yeah, it allows the other one to slip in more easily when you're putting it in and pulling it off next time. Finally, just while I'm in here, what you do need is a little blanket, and just put everything down on the blanket like I've just done here. You can see that I've got all the side panels, and I've put the screws that go with the side panels next to each other, and the ones for the rear guard, I've separated all the screws, but they're all the same size Phillips heads, and they're all the same size 5mm hex screws, so if you do mix them up, it's not the end of the world, but I try to keep everything together and on a blanket. So prepare the blanket before you start pulling parts off. You might make the mistake that I've done in the past, is just lean them up against the wall outside. Gust of wind comes along, blows them down on the concrete. Excellent. Alright, so that's it for today. That's how to pull the panels off the Super Soco. Very easy job. And I hope you got something out of this video. Thank you very much. Oh, hi viewers, it's me again. I just wanted to talk to you about the battery, DC battery voltage while the cover was off the bike. These two cables here are your positive and negative from the batteries, and they're going to the controller here. And it's live. If you turn the circuit breaker off, there'll be no power on these two. But at the moment it's live, and it's extremely dangerous if you are working around here. If I just put my meter on here, I'm measuring. Let me just get my meter and move it down here for you. You can actually have a look. You can see my multimeters here, and then I'll put it back onto the battery live terminals. You can see it's 63.8 volts, and they're not covered whatsoever. You can actually just see the heads here. So if you're in there doing some cleaning, or maybe you're doing work on the brakes or around the connectors or something like that, I recommend you obviously to turn off the circuit breaker, but if you are doing more work than that, for example adding an extra wire in for some charging or something like that, just pull the batteries out altogether, disconnect the battery terminals obviously inside, and just leave them loose inside disconnected, and that way you're doubly sure that there's no power on those wires. Okay, just the final thing I want to talk about is just some silicone spray on these exposed pieces of metal, and I'll show you what I'm going to do there. Okay, this is silicone lube spray, and what we're going to do is, while I've got this cover off here, you can see all these pieces of exposed tabs and metal and little shiny screws here. Well, over time they're going to rust, and in fact inside this thread here, it's already rusting around the frame inside the thread, and in this area here underneath it's starting to get rust. It's just a very thin coating of metal that's on these things. So you just get the silicone spray, and then you just simply spray the area, spray the bolts, anything shiny in the thread there, the bolts inside here where the back of the horn is, just spray here. It is silicone based, so there's nothing to worry about with the electrical connectors. Anything that's shiny, these little silver little coated bolts here, and you just go around and do that to everything that you can see while the cover's off. This is the other for the side cover there, and that'll actually protect the bolts and give it a coating, and it'll stop it from rusting. So you need to do this, when you pull the covers off, obviously you're going to clean behind there anyway. So while it's off, just go ahead and do that. Around on this side of the bike, I'm just going to spray around the suspension area, the bolt on the suspension, and then likewise here, I'm going to spray some of these connectors. In fact, this DC converter is already starting to get oxidization on it. It's starting to oxide a bit, which is not really good. So I'll spray some silicone spray on this. Wow, I'm surprised about that. It's not really good. Yeah, so any of the bolts, continue to spray there. Yeah, anything that's exposed, that's shiny anything, spray away. Yeah, and that's it. That's all you need to do, and that'll keep the little rust off, and it'll also make the screws come out much easier next time. Oh, I'll just spray in here. I forgot to spray in there as well. Around the other side of the bike. Spray in here too. There we go. Down here as well. There's a little screw thread. You can spray in there too. In fact, if you look close enough, you can probably see little spots where it's starting to rust anyway in the welding areas. It really is quite poor, the actual coating of when they painted the frame. It's unbelievably thin. Anyhow, this will protect it away from the air, and it'll help a lot. Okay, sorry, that's all I wanted to add to the video. Thank you very much.